You know who made it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the See Me, Be Me podcast. On today's episode, we are joined by a very special guest and our first councillor / politician, Abena Akuffo-Kelly, who is the mayor-elect of Folkestone and Hythe District Council, and also the chair of the council too. So, Abena, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, Abena, tell us how. I'm curious. This is our first guest who's a politician. How did you get into politics?
Well, on the lead up to my 40th birthday, I know I don't look anywhere near 40, but on the lead up to my 40th birthday, I said to myself, do you know what? I'm fed up of moaning about how things are absolutely terrible for people and how people are suffering and how it's just, you know, this was before even the cost of living crisis started, but austerity had meant that there are statistics that say austerity has killed about 350,000 people because of the lack of services, because of waiting lists and so on. And I said to myself, instead of talking about things, I want to actually make something happen. And I remember one of my friends, who is now an acquaintance really, said to me, one person can't make a difference. And I said, if we all thought that way, then nothing would happen. So it was actually a birthday present to myself. I know that's the way my brain works. It was a birthday present to myself to actually try to make a difference. So I joined a Labour Party, my local CLP, so that's my constituency Labour Party. And my very first event was a women's event. And then I just went to everything. So I went to all of the meetings. I became part of the exec. My daughter was really quite young at that point, but I would take her to every single meeting because I was like, just because I'm a single mum doesn't mean I can't have a life and I can't do things. And actually, that means that I can be a role model to her as well. That you can do, you know, as long as you plan it out, you can do anything that you put your mind to. And so after a couple of months of joining the CLP, suddenly there was an election and I was asked if I wanted to stand as a councillor. And I was like, oh, okay. And in my particular area for a really, really long time, no Labour councillors had won. It was basically pure Conservative. And so nobody really thought that we were going to win. And we did. And so from 2019, I became a councillor. And in 2023, I started my second term. So I'm a town councillor and a district councillor as well. So yeah, one isn't enough for me. I have to have two.
Going back before your political career, you had a quite successful STEM-based career. Can you tell a bit of our audience, a bit of your background in terms of the STEM side?
I'm still doing that. So you've introduced me as a counsellor, but I do many other things as well. It's just one of my jobs. Yeah. My daughter often says to me, Mummy, what job are you doing today? And sometimes actually it's not just one job. I will do multiple jobs in one day. So I was a teacher for 16 years. I was a head of department for computer science. So that's my specialism. I have a master's in computer science. And I love being a bit of a rebel, but what seems like a really straight-laced rebel. So people often assume, because of my accent and the way that I speak, and I say, oh, I used to be a teacher, they assume that I taught English. And also because I'm a woman and I'm Black, you know, they never assume computer science. So they're always like, the shock in their faces when I say computer science, I have a master's in computer science, you know. And then in addition to doing that, because I get bored very easily and I like to be doing multiple things at once, I also trained as a PDL, professional development leader with STEM learning, so that I could also work with them to train non-specialist teachers to be able to teach computer science, because there aren't enough teachers who actually teach computer science. It's pretty logical. I mean, if you go to university and you do a computer science degree, you're going to earn considerably more in industry than as a teacher. So many people just go straight into industry rather than becoming teachers. So to sort of level out the playing field, people like me train people who are teaching geography, or they're teaching maths, or they're teaching history. And I do a sequence of different sort of sessions with them, teach them how to program, teach them about computational thinking, networks and such like. And then they do a little test, and then they have a certificate to show that they can actually teach to GCSE level. So that's one of the things I've done with STEM learning. I've also what's called an Infuse partnership advisor. Infused partnerships are sort of a consortium of schools, including primary schools and secondary schools, who and they usually try to create them in areas of high deprivation, to increase aspirations for students to be able to actually go into STEM careers or continue with STEM subjects in school. So it's upskilling the teachers, getting them all of the CPD that they need to be able to teach those subjects to a really high level, but also infusing the students and motivating them and giving them experiences that they ordinarily wouldn't. And there's a set amount of money that actually goes towards the schools over 2 years. And as the coach, you sort of guide them through that and make them aware of some of the different opportunities that are on offer to actually increase that sort of, again, the aspirations for STEM subjects.
Fantastic.
I wanted to ask you, just regarding your role as an Infuse partnership coach, how have you found the experience in terms of supporting schools and raising aspirations and engagement in STEM? Have you found it easy to change young people's mentalities in STEM careers, or has it been relatively easy to change the mindset? Because
I think it's not. I don't think it's the mindset that is the problem in changing. I think everybody really values STEM. They know that it's something which, especially since the pandemic, and suddenly, scientists became heroes. And we know when we see all of these incredibly rich, some of the richest people in the whole world are in tech careers. So lots of people see the value of it. The main issue in schools is just time and workload. Teachers are under a lot of pressure, and doing the Infused partnership is an additional sort of thing that they need to do on top of the marking, on top of the teaching, on top of all the admin that they need to do. So sometimes that's more of the issue. They buy into it very, very well, but it's actually trying to implement it and finding the time to implement it, even when they're being offering free CPD, and the money pays towards getting cover, so getting a cover teacher to cover their class whilst they're off to getting their CPD. For some, it's still a problem, because if you're not in your classroom and somebody else is in your classroom, even if you give them the work to do and they're supposed to continue with what you were doing in the previous lesson, sometimes you come back and you still have to sort of check, and it's not the same. It's not the same as you being in your classroom. So that's the main barrier, because teachers are they're just so busy. They want to make the difference, but it's just fitting that in, because they're only human.
The next question I wanted to ask you, Abena, it's just on the area of neurodiversity. Now, with neurodiversity, it's an area that's close to your heart, given your own experiences and whatnot. So how do you advocate for, let's say, greater understanding and acceptance of neurodiverse individuals in society?
So one of the things that I do well, and I've been told I do well actually, and it seems to help people a lot. And I always get people say, "Oh God, you're so inspirational! Thank you so much for speaking for me and making me feel like I'm seen." Is that I do tell people. So I do a lot of contracts, so I that's why I'm so busy doing all sorts of different things. And I tell people, look, I'm neurodiverse. I have ADHD, but to be honest, ADHD is the reason why I do as much as I do, because I have to do lots of different things, because I would just get so completely bored. So I have ADHD, and I say, look, these are the things that I might have difficulty in. So for example, I have time blindness. So if I get really, really engrossed in something that I'm doing, it means that I just don't notice what the time is. And I can suddenly come up from this sort of hyper fixation on doing some graphics, for example, because I love doing graphics. And it's like 2 a.m. And I'm like, oh, I should be sleeping by now, but I was having so much fun. And like, and so by explaining it in regards to me as a person who's the person that they're doing the contract with, I'm balancing out, saying that there are things that, yes, I won't be as good at, but I do actually work really hard to make sure that I'm on time for things. But because of my ADHD, that is why I have my finger in so many pies. So every single time I'm talking to you and I'm answering a question about something, have you noticed I'm adding another thing that I do? And they're all different. They are completely different, but the overarching theme is that they help people. And that is who I am. I want to make a difference. I say it to my friends all the time. I want to make loads of money from helping people, because I don't understand why, if you're a charity, if your focus is trying to make a difference and helping people, you're supposed to be poor. Why? There are people who are making money from just basically for the sake of making money. And I actually, every single time, every single day when I wake up, every single thing that I do, if I list all the things that I do throughout my day, doesn't matter which project I'm working on, which company I'm working on, which contract I'm working on, it's helping people. Why shouldn't I be making loads of money? Why shouldn't I be enjoying myself? I'm actually making a difference to people, not making a difference to a company's bank, which they have so much money anyway, they don't even notice how much money they've got. I'm making a difference to real living human beings. So why should I be poor doing that? I haven't got to the heights that I want to get to yet, but I know it's coming. It's on its way.
Do you know what? A couple of things. So I've noticed that a lot of people consider now, ADHD used to be a taboo, but now, it's a superpower, and
I try not to use that term. That term. Yes. Okay. The reason why I try not to use it is that, like quite a lot of things, there is a spectrum of experience.
There is a spectrum.
Yeah. Yes. And there are some people where ADHD is completely debilitating for them. And I will say, in some instances, for me, it can be completely debilitating as well. But the thing is, just the same way as when you go onto on LinkedIn, there are very few people who are saying, oh, I went for like 50, 60 jobs and I didn't get any of them. I failed every single time. It just didn't work out for me. Most of the time, people are talking about their successes. So you don't see, but I actually tell people, because I think that's really important. That's what I mean about, I'm sort of, there's this word is used in the LGBT community about usualizing. I'm trying to usualize the experience of ADHD people. So, for example, as I told you, I'm very, very hyper focused. I can think of several things at once. When I'm talking right now to you, I'm thinking of other things at the same time, because that's just how my brain works. I can't focus on one thing. Sometimes when I'm in a meeting, and I've told people this, and in some of my contracts they understand it, I most of the time have my video off, because as I am actually in the meeting, I have to be doing something else whilst I'm sitting in the meeting, because just focusing on one thing just doesn't catch my attention. Actually, whilst I'm in the meeting, having the meeting, I might be creating some graphics, or sending an email, or doing this or doing that. I'm still focused, but if I'm not doing something else, so if you've seen people using fidget spinners, it's because their brains have to, my brain is ticking over. And you can sort of hear it in the way that I speak as well. My brain is ticking, tick, 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 tick. I can't just focus on one thing. And it sounds crazy to some people. Focusing on two things is actually easier for me. But then there are also those times when I get into a sort of loop with something. So, for example, I wanted to apply for some funding, and because it was so important to me to get it right, I just couldn't sit down and start the funding application. It took me months and months and months. And whilst I was waiting for that, I was trying to find the funds from my own pocket. So that was actually a major detriment to me. And that was because of my ADHD. But at the same time that I was doing that and not actually writing my application, I was being really successful with my CIC. People were saying how wonderful it was. I've got an award. I've got 2 more awards that I've been nominated for. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So the success and the debilitating issues marry up together, and that they can both be happening on the same day. But also there are some people who actually they don't seem as high functioning. And so actually their ADHD means that they can hardly, they're just stuck. They're just stuck and they can't do anything. So I can't say that it's a superpower because it's disrespectful to those people where it isn't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's such a massive spectrum.
So
sorry, let me just finish this last question, Blair. So going off on that one, then, what can employers do? Because it's such a wide spectrum. How can employers, seek to make a more, inclusive workforce, especially for people who are from neurodiverse backgrounds? What can they do to make it more comforting, or be able to give, I wouldn't say comforting, but give the right support that those individuals need?
So one of my other roles is an EDI consultant. So I do talk about neurodiversity, intersectionality, gender, LGBT rights, and so on. But in all of that, I talk about belonging.
Yeah.
So it's not about there's a generic sort of way of describing people with neurodiversity. I'm also autistic, so I'm ADHD and autistic. And again, when I talk about intersectionality, a lot of people, when they think about autism, when they think about neurodiversity, they don't think about a Black person. When they think about autism, they don't think about somebody who seems so talkative, who seems so personable. They have this idea in their head of somebody who might be stilted in their conversation, but it manifests in different ways. And there's also that level of masking as well, that you won't see some of the stuff because I've socialized myself to know that if this, then that. So the only time sometimes that you'll really see it is if I come across a situation that I've never come across before, that I haven't watched somebody playing out before, then you will think she's a bit weird because I'm not acting the way that you expect me to act, because I don't know how I'm supposed to act in regards to that way. So I'll just be sitting there and you'll be like, this isn't normal. She doesn't seem to be showing any emotion to this. She doesn't seem to be, but it's because sometimes I don't know. But also part of how I manifest my autism is that I have intense emotions about things. I feel very, very intensely about people. So if I know that somebody's in a lot of pain, I feel that very, very intensely. And that's the reason why I'm a counsellor as well, because I want to help people. And it means so much to me to help people. But returning back to what you were saying, it's about just asking people, because what I said is it's a spectrum. You don't know until you ask the person, what do you need to be able to actually thrive in this environment? Because it might be that, I'm not the sort of person who's very good at small talk when, if we have to all our socializing and all the business meetings actually really, and the decisions actually happen at the pub or when we go out for a meal. And I don't really like socializing, and I don't like small talk. So therefore I am missing out on those opportunities. It's actually realizing that there are some people who are really, really good at their jobs. They're really, really good at actually innovating. They might not be good at the small talk. They might not be good at handing things on time. So actually managing expectations. So I spoke to one of my contracts and I told them, look, instead of you just saying in a meeting, everybody needs to do this, everybody needs to do that, and not giving us a time and a deadline. I need a deadline. I have to have a deadline, because if you don't give me a deadline, because I try to fit so much into my life, I will do something else. because I'll be like, oh, well, it's not urgent, so I'm not going to do it. So they started adding deadlines. I said, you know, there were loads of different things that I said would be really, really useful for me. And actually was useful for everybody else, because one of the things that people don't realize, just because a reasonable adjustment has been made for a particular individual, which it might be because of a disability or some sort of other identity, it can actually be of value to other people. So, for example, subtitles were introduced for people who, had hearing impairment. I use subtitles all the blooming time. You know, on these Hollywood films, they're mumbling, and I'm like, I want to know what they said. That's part of my neurodiversity. So I need to know exactly. I can't miss anything. So I always have the subtitles on with everything. The subtitles are on 24/7 because I want to catch every single word. I don't want to miss it.
What piece of advice have you received in your career that felt counterintuitive at first, but proved to actually be valuable advice?
Oh, so it was my cousin actually who said it to me. I was like, this doesn't make sense, because when I was a lot younger and I hadn't really come into my power and I was sort of scared, I remember being really, really hurt at one of the schools that I worked at because people were treating me really badly. And I didn't understand why, because I was working really hard and I was being really effective and I was being really professional and successful in what I was doing. I was, getting noted, throughout my whole county. So I actually got an award to say that I'm a lead teacher and everything like that. Yet there were certain people within the department I was working at that point who had been really, really nasty to me. And I think it could have been a mixture of racism as well. And my cousin said, sometimes when people treat you badly, it's not because you're rubbish. It's because you shine so bright that you're blinding them, and they cannot stand your brightness. They can't stand your light. It actually makes them uncomfortable. And I really didn't understand it at that point, because I was like, but then why are they being so horrible? Why can't they just, again, this is my autism. Like, if I'm doing well, why don't they just tell me I'm doing well? Why would they want to say horrible things to me? I don't understand, because I'm working really hard. And now I do understand it. When you are doing really well and you're really successful, there are some people who, instead of seeing that as the catalyst that I said earlier that it should be, it makes them feel so rubbish about themselves because they want to be doing that. But actually, sometimes they're too lazy to do that. They want to do it, but they don't want to put the effort in to do it. So the easier thing to do is to make you feel rubbish about yourself. Because then they don't have to actually put much effort in at all. And I used to really, really not understand that. I really didn't understand it, because that's just not how my brain works. And it took him saying that, and then me seeing it over and over again. I've noticed every single time I move on to the next level of my life, I get more and more haters, more and more people who are saying all sorts of things about me. And I'm like, but why aren't people congratulating me? Why aren't people celebrating with me? Because when they do well, I'm like, oh, that's so amazing. Yeah. And I'm like, how comes they don't feel the same level of like happiness when I succeed?
Yeah.
Not everyone's like that.
That resonates with me so well. I don't know why it is, but I think you've just answered why it is. It's that sometimes people don't feel happy within themselves, and I think they wish that they could be doing what you're doing, I don't know. I think it's a weird one, because sometimes, and I've seen other entrepreneurs say this, sometimes your biggest supporters are strangers, people that don't know you from Adam.
Yes.
And the people who do know you become almost like your biggest haters, even though, and I think what's the terminology called? It's crabs in a barrel. But it's because the reason why
people are friends is because they have a sort of definition of who you are in their heads. When you create something new, then that doesn't fit into their idea of who you are. And so the dynamic has to either be shifted, and they have to be malleable enough to be able to shift that dynamic. And some people aren't malleable enough to actually shift how they think about you and now start thinking about you on that next level. And those people who can't think of you. So it happens sometimes with women groups where there might be one woman who's particularly fat and everybody else is really skinny. And then that woman loses lots of weight and is just as skinny as the others. Well, actually, maybe your purpose in that group, it's not the right purpose, but your purpose in that group was to be the fat one. So that when they went out, they could look sexy next to you in comparison to you. And so now you are not meeting the needs of that group and of that friend, because some people are like that. I'm just going to be honest. Some people are like that. So therefore, because you are now, that equilibrium that they thought that they had before has now been shifted, and they are now seeing that maybe you're on a slightly higher level than them. They don't like that. So they now need to bring you back down. And sometimes they don't want to bring you down back to the same level as them. They want you to bring you down lower than them so they can still feel good about themselves. And that's why they do it.
Do you know what? I feel like I could go on and just talk about this.
This is why I do my coaching. So if anyone's interested in coaching, I do coaching as well. Honestly, I'm laughing at myself, the number of jobs I keep on saying I do. But I do all of them. I do all of them because that's just me.
Oh, and we still got one more fun question to ask this one. Right. If you can have any superpower apart from what you've already been given right now, which is just amazing. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
You sort of try to cancel out the answer that I was going to give you, but I'm going to ignore you cancelling it out. I am so grateful for what God has given me. I have that superpower within me already. There's nothing else I need. All I need to do is carry on manifesting it and carry on growing it. And my superpower that I have is that I believe I can do anything. Anything. I don't believe there's anything that I can't do. Some of it I might not do as well as somebody else. But most of it, I do pretty well. There's like most things, you'll be surprised how many different things I can do. And I'm like, sometimes I sit down and I'm like, fuck you, Abena. You what? Are you even human? Some people do say to me, you human? Are you for real? When they read my list of jobs, they're like, is that one person? I had somebody, they introduced me when I was going to be doing a talk. And they said, when I read the list of things that she did, I was like, is that one person or is it three? I don't understand.
Can we just check you are human and you're not a robotic, you're not a robot?
I do.
AI?
I'm a very crazy robot.
The amount that you're doing, and you mentioned you might be up till 2-3 a.m. still working on projects, and like for example today you set off at 3 a.m. to come up to Edinburgh, and the fact that you're still fully functional and on this podcast. If it was me, I'd be probably so tired and slurring my words. I would not have the energy. But that is a superpower in itself, that you still got so much energy. I don't know how much coffee you've had, Abena, today. I don't know.
I don't drink coffee. Coffee gives me a headache. I don't drink it.
See, that is natural energy right there.
It is. Energy. I always say to people, I don't need to take drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. I said, I get high on my own supply. Like lots of people have to drink alcohol so that they can lose their inhibitions, so they can feel more comfortable. I don't need to do that. If I want to say something or do something, I will do it. I don't need any other external stimuli to make me do it. So I get high on my own supply all the time.
Just pure life energy.
Yeah.
Pure life energy. Researchers, collect a sample of this woman's blood. We need this everywhere. We need this.
You know who made it.
Well, that's all we've got time for on the See Me Be Me podcast. But make sure to catch not only this episode, but the next episode of the See Me Be Me podcast. And for now, take care and see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.